I'll try to keep the rambling down a little.
If all of a sudden I just disappear, it's because I'm have to go get her. What does your mug say?
This is from my undergrad.
I was mugged by the alumni office. Oh, gotcha.
Yes. The other
Classic.
one you can buy at the school bookstore is anywhere else it would have been an A, but it just seems a little something.
That would work for Canada.
Oh, I'll have to see if the Canadian chapter of the Alumni Association does
Yeah.
something like that.
All right, it is live, and yeah, for anybody who's tuning in, oh, I'm just going to tweet this before I forget
Sure.
from the Good Stuff account, and then retweet from the various ones. So yeah, we're doing a quick one today because partially because I have a frozen mouth, but I'm not falling on that sword. Actually, I have to go pick up my kids for lunch, so we'll get started ASAP, and might randomly just cut off when I shut it off and leave. Leave Nicholas standing. All right. I think I hit record. Yes, I did. Just making
I think
sure.
usually it's me about to lose the room that's
Yeah,
our heart out. So
exactly. And so, yeah, you can get 10 bonus points or whatever it is. I forget what we set it up on Twitch, like the coins or things. You can get 10 bonus points if you could get a screenshot of me drooling somehow. More than normal. All right. On that note, let's get this started. Hello and welcome to 25 Cents, an Apple Arcade podcast. I'm Chris.
And I'm Nick. Each episode, we'll be talking about the Apple Arcade games we've tried, what we keep going back to, what we think might be great games to check out if you've got kids, and preview upcoming games.
You can find us wherever you listen to podcasts, of course, on the web. I mess that up every time. You can. I also got a text notification at the same time, so I was like, oh, shoot, I didn't turn that off. Okay, let's start. It's always an adventure. Try that again.
Mm-hmm.
You can find us wherever you listen to podcasts or on the web at Goodstuff.fm. All right. Welcome back to 25 Cents, Nick. How are you doing?
Good. How's your, I guess we had a little break here with other workloads and stuff taking over our time.
Yeah. But back into the saddle. I always find it's always hard to get back into like the rhythms of normal life, and this to me is part of, like, recording podcasts is part of normal life and things I want to do, but it's always like it gets pushed down the priority list as other, well, I mean, sometimes when paying work comes along you kind of have to not surprisingly, we don't get rich doing podcasts at Good Stuff yet anyway, so
Yeah, I don't think we have any arcade developers banging at our door for sponsorships.
although I just connected the dots thanks to Twitter that Noodle Cake Studios actually is right here in town. They're the makers of Super Stickman Golf, which was a really popular game a few years ago on iOS and probably other platforms too. And yeah, I should go find their address and just like bang on their door to see if they want to sponsor our podcast. But we'll see where that comes. They do actually have an Apple Arcade one. We'll get to that game in Apple Arcade that we'll get to in a bit. But so last episode we decided to play Doomsday Vault. And Nick, how did you make out with Doomsday Vault?
Played it with my son. We finished it. There are basically 10 levels right now. There's a notification when you finish that there are more levels coming, so that's pretty exciting. I liked it. It's got a good aesthetic. It's definitely accessible to a younger audience because of the controls, and it's got kind of a cool setting message, I thought. What'd you think?
Yeah, it's I don't know, I think maybe 25% of the way through. Every episode I feel like I have to preface with the asterisk that our family got a Switch and it's just next to impossible to not, when you have a Zelda Breath of the Wild calling you or any number of games on the Apple Arcade, it's just like I know it's the siren call of the Switch that wins every time. I apologize, podcast listeners. And like I said, I'm going to try not to turn it into a Switch podcast, but it's really hard not to go down that route. But that being said, I really like the game. I think I had a higher expectation for how fun it would actually be. It feels a little bit like Portal, like in the sense, or like every game since Portal came out, where it's like, go get this box, put it on a thing, that'll open this door. Then you have to like, and there's been games like that before, obviously too. This one I feel like is maybe a little bit slower moving, which is good for definitely the younger set. I think when I showed my kids it didn't have the visually, it had the appeal, but when they actually started playing it, they lost a little interest with it just because it doesn't move that fast. Which there are some puzzles I found, like some of where the water's going down or up, I guess, and you're running out of energy and you have to get through a thing quickly enough. That's where, the excitement and like sort of the challenge of the actual game itself came through. There's obviously puzzle challenges, but in terms of like interactive video game kind of faster paced challenges were few and far between in it. But I really dug, like you sort of touched on, but I dug the controls. They worked really well mobile. I didn't ever feel a need to go grab a controller. Sometimes going up and down stairs or up and onto a block was a little bit frustrating, like dismounting or whatever from that, pushing the right direction down and then moving. But I don't know, you got further in the game, I guess. Did the puzzles kind of ramp up in difficulty?
I would say the puzzles didn't really ramp up too much, but the difficulty and speed required, especially on the last level, definitely ramped up. There was one or two places where we got stuck for a little while, just kind of not seeing the thing we needed to move or interact with to get to the next puzzle. I would say overall, the sort of the graph underlying the puzzles, like what you have to do in order, is fairly simple, which I think again is why it's a pretty accessible game for younger players. The last level, my son basically had to hand it over to me because there's several sections of quick laser dodging you have to do. So you have to wait for the laser to pass, swipe, 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 wait, swipe, 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 wait, that kind of move. And that was beyond his abilities at this stage as a 6-year-old touch player.
Right. Yeah. And so I think like, again, like I kind of keep coming back to, I think for me, I definitely, it feels like a game I would finish in answer to that sort of one of our questions about games is, would you finish it? Is it worth keeping on your phone? And I definitely think it's something that I'll keep going back to and just pick away at slowly. I'm not in a hurry to finish it again. I guess I was thinking about like if someday comes where, heaven forbid for the podcast, I guess I cancel Apple Arcade, and so then would I spend that month, let's say I'm going to cancel at the end of this month or whatever, would I spend that month quickly trying to like wrap up all the games to get my money's worth out of it, or would I just kind of walk away? And I feel like this one is definitely one where I'd want to go back to and just to sort of see what the story is, because they did put a lot of thought into like sort of the mechanics and why you're collecting seeds and like we'll touch on it a bit as far as how that reflects on what's going on in the real world and climate change and things like that you can kind of learn about through this. But yeah, it's not something that I'm like, I need to finish. And again, the asterisks of Zelda hanging over my head, I guess.
Right. Yeah. What completion are you at in Breath of the Wild?
It feels like a massive game. I have no concept of how far into it. Maybe there's a measure somewhere. 25% maybe, I think. I don't know. We're kind of like each of us, because it's a single player game and there's 3 of us that are wanting to play it at various times, and so we're all kind of like leapfrogging each other and like, oh, have you got here, and then kind of comparing notes. So but yeah,
gotcha.
This is not a Switch podcast.
Yeah, so not yet anyway, I hear. I'll have to start adjusting the household budget if we're going to switch.
That'll be a Patreon goal. We'll get Nicholas a Switch so we can pivot. So the sort of it has a little bit of edutainment elements to it, because as you complete each level, you are collecting the seeds for a particular plant, and it gives you kind of a description of the plant and how it would be useful in, for lack of a better phrase, rebuilding the world. And then there's this sort of vault non-game section where you're running around and planting the seeds and refreshing your nutrients. The only thing that seemed to happen, each seed you can plant up to 100 of them,
If you collected all 100 nutrients in a level, you can plant up to 10 seeds at a time. Otherwise, it's, divide by 10, round down. It's like if you collected uh, 55 nutrients in a level, you'll be able to plant 5 seeds at a time. So it'll take you 20 rounds of planting.
Hmm.
All that seems to happen when you get to 100 seeds planted is the room is completely full of whatever you're planting, and you get an achievement in Game Center.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense, I guess. And as far as replayability, I kind of I kind of think, anyways, there's limited replayability long term. How about you? Like, is this something where you go back to? I guess I can see when our kids are older, and if we still had Apple Arcade, then I'd be like, hey, yeah, you should try this game. But like for me personally, I don't think I would go back and replay.
Yeah, other than, like I said, maybe finishing the few levels where we didn't manage to spot all the nutrients, get those to
Right.
100%. I
Yeah.
don't see replaying a level that I've already fully completed. There's, like you said, it's a fairly simple game. It's accessible for young kids. There's just not a lot there in terms of exploring the level. Like, you pretty much go through the level, do the puzzle, and you're done. There's not a lot of opportunity to wander around. And some of that may be a limitation of these are at their core mobile games, so they can only be so big. You're not going to have a world like Breath of the Wild.
Right. Yeah. And that's, but it is an interesting kind of mechanic. And that I do kind of wonder with Apple Arcade, and this is where I was thinking like to interview somebody like at Noodle Cake here, even locally or whatever, about the experience of working with Apple Arcade. Because visually, it feels like it has to be good. The games have to be visually appealing in order to get, if not get on Apple Arcade, at least get featured by Apple so that your game gets played. And so a lot of emphasis, I feel like, is put into the visual feel of the game and whether there's as much depth to some of the games. I guess we'll see as we play through them. Not to say there isn't replayability on a lot of other games that we've done, like Dear Reader and others that we keep coming back to.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. And speaking of which, I guess that's a nice transition in terms of games we keep going back to. What have you been playing over the last few weeks since we last recorded?
Um, Pretty much the same too. Dear Reader and Grindstone. Grindstone it's like the right in my puzzle sweet spot. You kind of you look at the layout of the level on any given move, and you figure out the best thing you can do for the best combo, and try to get all three of the special unlocks every level. That's exactly the kind of casual mobile game I really love.
Yeah.
And then on Dear Reader, I think my son saw me playing at some point, maybe near bedtime, and he goes, "How is this even a game? It's just reading."
Which is a good point, and I know that actually that's part of the reason why I think that it's appealing for me to play. Sorry, I shouldn't be trying to. I have to confess that I downloaded Grindstone now too, because I was like, well, Nicholas keeps talking about it. I better have it on my phone. I haven't started up yet, but it definitely seems like that kind of like puzzle slash fun animation stuff right up my wheelhouse too. But yeah, Dear Reader is kind of fun because aside from the noises, so I often have to turn off the sound effects that are in the game so I don't alert everybody around me that there's a game happening right now. But when they do come over and look, it's not really like, it doesn't grab them. They're certainly like interested in what's going on, but they're not like sticking around to watch the way if I was playing like Grindstone or Doomsday Vault or almost any of the other games that I have on Apple Arcade right now. They would be instantly watching and then asking to use my phone to play the game. Whereas
Right.
Dear Reader is kind of like a nice, it's just for me time, if that makes sense.
Yeah, the more meditative, it's like your equivalent of doing Sudoku or a crossword puzzle or something.
Yeah, yeah, or almost like I'm reading an article about podcasting or whatever, and they kind of just see it, and then they're like, not as interested. So, which is a
Right.
whole meta discussion that we've had with our kids who are reading lots but getting into a lot of graphic novels and getting lazy about reading quote unquote. I think graphic novels are real books, but just whatever long form books, I guess, would be the equivalent. Anyways, that's just hitting a nerve here for what we're dealing with at home.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I definitely am also, yeah, Dear Reader, and then I'm sure Grindstone will be right in there. The ones that we've touched on before, I was just looking at my 25-cent folder on my phone, and so Inmost, Brawls, The Rink, and even What the Golf are kind of like, and again, asterisk the Switch, but are kind of like left behind right now, playing the current one we're doing, Doomsday Vault, and then Dear Reader is what I keep going back to.
Yeah, so I'm at level 134 in Grindstone, but yeah, I haven't touched the Rink or Inmost in a while. I was kind of playing a little more What the Golf after we discussed it on the episode, but haven't touched it in a few days at least. And then there's some others that I've tried that I've already deleted. Maybe on the off chance that.
Oh, you're not moving enough. Your room got.
Yes, the auto light, the energy saver lights just put me into darkness.
Dark mode.
Yeah, so I think some of those too we might want to discuss on a future episode, I suppose. So I haven't always explored them fully.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, you were mentioning you'd linked that or mentioned here in our notes areas that What the Golf got a Game of the Year on the Upgradies, which is another podcast, Relay.fm's podcast, the Upgrade Show, or Upgrade, I guess it's called, which we'll link to. But episode 278 was their sort of awards for the year, and game of the year they got for iOS was given to What the Golf, which is, I think, a worthy award for sure for that game. And you said he's at 98% completion. I didn't actually listen to that episode, but 98% completion on What the Golf.
Yeah, that was his claim at least, and I assume it is true. That's a good amount of playtime compared to what I've put in.
It's probably good that, I mean, I guess there's the screen time tracking on iOS, but the game itself doesn't it's necessarily tell you how long you've played. Some of them don't really want to know that sometimes with video games, but yeah.
I think Warcraft had a /played command you could type, and it would tell you how many days you had spent on a particular character. And yeah,
like World of Warcraft. Yeah,
that was bad.
Yeah. Sometimes it's best not to build those things into your games because almost self-shaming.
Yeah.
So in listener feedback, you had mentioned just something about some friends on their podcast or game show or something there.
Yeah, so my friends Corey and Brian. Corey was actually a guildmate in World of Warcraft, and we've stayed in touch since I stopped playing. And he has a video game podcast that's been running for I think 5 years now, called A Starting Point, mostly PC focus and console focus. Cool. They gave us a shout out their last episode.
Cool. Shoutengine.com/startingpoint looks like, but we'll have the link in the show notes. If you got a question or comment about a game that we played or a game we should play, you can reach us on Twitter for sure at 25 Cent Arcade. Just throwing that in there for listener feedback. And then, of course, the Patreon for Good Stuff, patreon.com/goodstuff, if you want to support the show as well and join our Discord where there's fun conversations happening about games, TikTok, wolves,
breakfast ketchup.
Yeah. Which definitely is allowed at the dinner table, breakfast table. But we'll just slip that in there, see if anybody's listening. So the game for next episode, you had a few here. Pitch me your games that you're thinking for next episode.
Yeah, so there was a new release that involved space that looked like a space action survival thing that might be interesting, called No Way Home. Haven't looked into it. I think it came out last week. The Independent Games Festival nominated Mutazione, I'm not Italian, Mutation in Italian, for several different awards. So those both might be interesting. I think in my case, both of those are not ones that are playable with a kid just at a glance.
Right.
And then you had a few to consider.
Yeah, the only one I was mentioned earlier, Enchanted World by the local guys here, local folks, Noodle Cake Games, was one option. And there's one I forgot to make a note of. Let me just quickly fire open Apple Arcade here, or the App Store, I guess. And in the arcade section, I'll cut this out, but no, I can't remember. There's the featured one right now is called They're Right Behind You, which looks kind of like, I don't know if you ever played Mirror's Edge ever, where you're like It's like a
Yeah,
runner. It
I
looks like a
did.
platform runner, but a little bit of that style. And I find those kind of like platform runners, like it's a simple gimmick or genre, I guess, in gaming, mobile gaming especially. That just it works really well. They're not there's not nothing altogether unique about it from game to game, but the sort of wrapping of it looks interesting. Um, yeah, sorry, I'm getting lost now. I told Nicholas before we recorded that maybe we wouldn't do the trailer thing, and now I'm got myself watching the trailer. It's like a linear
They're
platform where
definitely
you can't like go back. It's a 3D world, but you're only on one path basically through that world. Looks
right.
visually interesting and really good, but yeah, I'm also fine putting it on our to play list as well. What did I say it was called? Stella. Stella. No, they're right behind you. Stella's the company that makes it, I think. Somehow I saw. So, I don't know. What's your pick? Is there anybody watching in the stream? Let's
Um,
see. Shout out us in the chat room if you're watching. You have a pick, but what's your pick?
um, I think Enchanted World sounds pretty good to me. I think I noticed that's on when we were in an Apple store a couple months ago, but after Arcade launch, that's on their demo iPads
Oh
for
yeah,
Arcade is
right.
Enchanted World. And you said they're a local developer for you, so that sounds like a good fit.
Yeah, I'm not sure if they're a publisher for sure, and whether they actually developed it or not is the other. They with the success of Super Stickman. That's my mouth freezing is coming to play here. With the success of Super Stickman Golf, I know they were able to then turn into a publisher as well as a developer, and so I don't know. I'm not sure how it all lists it because they're listed as the seller and copyright to them, but at any rate, they're involved with Enchanted. I don't want to claim that they'd built it if they didn't actually, and someone else actually deserves credit for that. But yeah, won some awards in 2018. So must have been when it was maybe in development or something, best upcoming game. And it's a puzzle as well, which I think works well, like you said, with our aesthetic and interests for sure. And looks like something you probably could play with kids as well. It looks like it's kid safe.
Yeah, I think so. Well, I'll have to see if he's interested in it. Otherwise, I'll just play it myself.
Yeah.
So I think I also noticed you had mentioned that was it John over at Mac Rumors has been doing a new column on Apple Arcade games. We could link to that too,
Yeah, or on not Mac Rumors,
or
Mac
not Mac
Stories,
Rumors, Mac Stories. Yes,
MacStories.net.
Mac Stories.
Yeah, there's
You can edit that out and replace it with an apology to Federico.
but yeah, it looks like John Voorhees, I think is how you say his name, has been doing a little more deeper dive on Apple Arcade games, which he just reviewed Pilgrims, which is a Czech studio, it looks like, and sort of a card-based adventure game that looks really fun. I'm just like a sucker for like really good, not like the realistic graphics, but just really well done, interesting visuals. That then the game might not, like I was saying earlier, might not always have like depth to it that actually is what I want when I play the game. But visually, it looks really fun and interesting, and makes me want to buy an iPad.
Yeah, I think it's
Actually,
the same studio that did Machinarium several years back, which
oh
which
yeah,
has that same sort of hand drawn
yeah,
art style. I tried a little bit and got stuck pretty quickly on one of the item puzzles, but we could definitely revisit that one too at some point.
right, yeah. So yeah, something to check out. I'll definitely from time to time, either of us will retweet stuff that we see, news and articles and reviews and things of games and hardware, I guess, related to Apple Arcade for sure. If you follow us on Twitter at 25C Arcade, and put that one on our list of games to play as well. I think it looks fun. So yeah, Apple Arcade Highlights is the column it looks like that he's writing. So a bit of a deep dive on some new games that he's come across. So. But on that note, I need to go warm up the car because it's minus crazy outside and go try and eat with a frozen mouth. But thank you for listening to 25 Cents, an Apple Arcade podcast. You can find me on Twitter at iChris.
And you can find me on Twitter and most everywhere else as Ultra Nerd. That's NURD.
And you can find 25 Cents wherever you listen to podcasts, of course. And be sure to check out the Good Stuff Patreon, patreon.com/goodstuff. And thank you for watching. If you're watching on the Twitch stream, we always often stream live, twitch.tv/GSFM. Thank you for listening. Have a great day. Adios.
Bye.
All right. Cool.
Cool. All
I think
right, let me
actually,
stop
in some ways,
recording.
the like a hard and fast not we can't just go for an hour is almost gonna net us a better show probably in the end. We self edit a bit
Yeah,
more.
it'll keep us to the format a little more.
Yeah.
Um, I guess we should try to settle on the net games for next episode a little more beforehand, so we're not so like, maybe this. I
Yeah.
don't know. But I think we have some good options to put on the list.
Well, I was thinking once we have
In
like
addition to
2,000 people watching live on this live stream, then we just put up a poll and they pick for us or tweet at us or whatever.
right,
But I know when there's 30 listeners of the show and one maybe people who show up live, then it's hard to
yeah,
have a poll.
yeah.
All right. I'm going to
All right,
go. We
thanks,
will
Chris.
carry on the conversation in Discord later, I guess, and
Of course.
go from there.
Let me know if
Thanks,
you
Nick.
need any links or details.
Yeah, if you because I won't be editing right away. If you want to send me your audio, if it worked to record and stuff, send me your audio right away, or not right away, like at some point here shortly. Then I'll actually use your original audio rather than the audio hijack
Okay.
version.
Yeah,
that I
I'll
recorded.
drop it in Dropbox shortly.
Cool. All right, and thanks for
All
watching.
right.
If you're out there, or if you watch later, and you want to find us, goodstuff.fm. Bye.
Bye.